Hello and welcome to another intensivecarehotline.com and intensivecarehome.com live stream. Thank you so much for coming onto the call and for your support. In today's show, you can ask me anything as it relates to your loved one in intensive care or with intensive care at home. That is what this show is all about. You can ask me anything. Before we go into your questions, which you can type into the chat pad, or you can actually join me live on the stream, and I will provide the link shortly. Just want to quickly talk about what makes me qualified to talk to families in intensive care, to answer their questions, to give advice, to provide advocacy and consulting. I'm a critical care nurse by background. I have worked in critical care and intensive care for nearly 25 years in 3 different countries. I worked as a nurse manager in intensive care for over 5 years. I have been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care for over 10 years here at intensivecarehotline.com. I can say without any hint of exaggeration that we have saved lives as part of our consulting and advocacy, and you can verify that on our testimonial section or on our podcast section with client interviews. I'm also the manager or managing director and founder of Intensive Care at Home, and you can find more information at intensivecareathome.com. With Intensive Care at Home, we are sending critical care nurses into the home for predominantly long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomies, where we provide a genuine alternative to a long-term stay in intensive care. And again, we have been doing so successfully for over 10 years now. We are employing hundreds of years of critical care nursing experience in the community, a skill level that I believe no other service provider in Australia can match. We are also the only service provider in Australia that is actually third-party accredited for intensive care at home. Once again, you can find more information at intensivecareathome.com. We're currently operating all around Australia, but even if you're in the US or in the UK and you need help, we can help you there privately. In Australia, we are NDIS approved, NDIS accredited, TAC in Victoria, ICARE in New South Wales, NIISQ in Queensland, as well as DVA all around the country. We have received funding through public hospitals, private hospitals, as well as departments of health. Now, I also hope that you can hear me loud and clearly. If you can hear me loud and clearly, maybe just type a 1 into the chat pad. There was a recording the other day where people couldn't hear me, so if you can just quickly type a 1 into the chat pad, or a yes if you can hear me loud and clearly, that would be great. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's questions. Please type them into the chat pad, or if you want to come on live on the show here and ask me questions here, you can just use the StreamYard link here. I've just sent that link into the chat pad. You can join me live on the show here and talk to me directly. You can either do that by being on camera or off camera. I know some people are camera shy, and that's absolutely fine. You can still talk to me by being off camera. Now, if you don't have any questions yet, I will read out some questions and answer them that have come in during the week. And I have a question here from Dawn, who says, we are tired of my grandmother's recovery process being interrupted. How can I change that? Well, thank you, Dawn, for your email. And I know you've been on this show before, and you've asked questions here on this show before. Dawn, if you feel like your grandmother's recovery process is being interrupted, I know the context of your question because I do remember when you first contacted us, your grandmother was at risk of going into LTAC from ICU. She was obviously ventilated. She had a tracheostomy. I can't remember whether she had a PEG tube or not. But one way or another, here are the steps if you are concerned about your grandmother going into LTAC, either prematurely or most of the time unnecessarily. Well, first of all, no hospital can send your grandma out without her consent or without you or your mother's consent, right? And I know that you and your mother were the next of kins or the powers of attorney, right? And don't. It's often as simple as simply saying no. It's often no more complicated than that. Other strategies here are to ask for the hospital discharge policy. There's two things here. A, if they don't show you the policy, you know what's in there, because then the policy says something along the lines of that hospitals can't discharge without your consent. Or B, if they do show it to you, you will see it anyway. Leo, I can see you're on. I'll get you on the call in 1 second. Just let me answer this question and then I will get you on, Leo. So it's as simple as that, It's simply putting your foot down. Another strategy here is if you talk to your health insurance, the hospitals often say, oh, health insurance won't pay. Well, get it from the horse's mouth. Talk to the health insurance. Don't take it for gospel. Just talk to the health insurance, right? And C, get a second opinion. We can provide a second opinion for you. We will most likely find the reasons why your grandma shouldn't go to LTAC, right? There's so many cases where people contact us, go back from LTAC, people bounce back from LTAC into ICU. I can tell you so many cases. So, by us looking at the medical records or by talking to doctors and nurses directly, we will find a valid clinical reason why your grandma can't go to LTAC. Those are the strategies in a nutshell. There's more to add, of course, but that would probably end up in a consultation and with me directly, or you can come on the show here and ask more questions. So let's get Leo in here. Hang on.
Hello, Patrick.
Hi, Leo. How are you?
Well, I'm still alive, and my father's still alive, but I really rapidly losing faith in the medical community. The last time I actually came on live, I asked a question about, well, you gave me the counsel, I should say, you gave me the counsel about appealing to the higher people, and so that we wouldn't get discharged from the Mayo Clinic to the local LTAC. Well, unfortunately, the following day, we were actually discharged to the local LTAC, so there wasn't opportunity to appeal to anybody. And while my father was at the LTAC, he got a stage 3 pressure wound. It wasn't diagnosed until very late that he had a urinary tract infection, which directly became a kidney infection, which turned into sepsis. So we now have been in a local hospital next to the LTAC for the last 2 weeks. So my father, they're saying now that the antibiotics more or less have run their course, he's now suitable to go to another LTAC. If you may or may not remember, we're not originally from Florida. That's where we are now. We're originally from up north. So I'm sorry, I'm still in the ICU with my father, so I apologize if there's a lot of noises, and also the nursing staff is going to be changing over shortly. So my question to you, and I really don't know what else to do, but my question is, he's now on dialysis. He hasn't been able to withstand the dialysis. There's only been one treatment that he actually did the whole 2 hours for, and they got 1 liter off of him. He hasn't been able to tolerate. This morning, they tried this dialysis. He was only on the dialysis for 20 minutes before his Heart rate went up to 185. His pressure was dropping. His MAP was like as low as 50. Um, his oxygen saturation also dropped throughout the day. So he was on amiodarone, I think is the name of the medication, on the um, I think it's not mercury. It's one of the um, he was on one of he was on norepinephrine. He was on a number of different things today to try to normalize him and bring him back to become stable. And it's only just before I got on this call did he become stable, and he's been in the critical state since early this morning. So I have many questions, but my one question, since I know we're have limited time, is right now the doctors more or less haven't been talking with me. They just come in, they say hello, and they say goodbye. They don't tell me what's his status in terms of his kidney health. What are they doing aside from dialysis to optimize him, and what treatments they what is the treatment plan? What are they doing to help him? So could I ask you, what should I do to ask them how can they optimize him? Also, since being in two hospitals and one LTAC, he's progressively has got worse. So neurologically, he was tracking, he was moving his head, he was able to move his hands to a degree. Now since we've been here in this hospital for two weeks, neurologically he has regressed. He not doing any of those things. So they say that he's stable to go to an LTAC, but at the same time, they're also saying that uh, because of his age and all these things that are now piling up on him, that maybe we should think of palliative care at the same time. But they still want us to go to the LTAC. So what can you tell me that we can do to try to keep my father as I ultimately I want to keep him around, but also I don't want to put him in any distress. And as you say, how would I feel 12 months out or in the future with the decisions that I make now? So I want to make the best decisions for him, looking to see what you could do to help me make better decisions for my father.
Okay. Thank you, Leo, for sharing all of this. I have a number of things to say about this situation, and I've taken notes, so I will address them almost one by one. And one more question, how long did he stay in the first LTAC before he went to this ICU now?
It was almost 2 weeks.
2
And
weeks,
also
okay.
when he was at this LTAC, he was capped with his trach. He went through the 48 hours. They were going to. They said if he was able to survive the 48 hours or manage to do the 48 hours, they were going to talk about removing the trach. So he was doing wonderful. We're at this hospital, and he was able to do 24 hours on the trach collar, but he couldn't go anything further than that.
Okay. So I said I've taken notes here, and I will address your issues one by one. The first thing is to not repeat this exercise again. And now he is in a different ICU to where he was initially. Is that right?
Correct.
That's madness. At least he could have gone somewhere where people already know him. But this is why we so strongly advise against LTAC to begin with. Leo, I have seen this so many times where people go to LTAC and then they bounce back to ICU, and then they're bouncing back to another ICU where people don't know, they don't know your dad. They have to start from scratch, evaluating him and examining him. But, anyway, to go back, let's address, I believe, your most critical point here. I do believe your most critical point at the moment is not to go back into LTAC again. Now, I know from experience, when you address the hospitals early enough, it sounds to me like you addressed the hospital one day before he went to LTAC. Is that correct?
Yes, I tried to reach out to the
Yeah,
case
too late.
management. Yes.
Too late, too late. You know, too little, too late. My advice is always that, you know, as soon as you know that this is on the cards, you need to make some noise, right? So my advice is to make some noise right now, because, you know, especially with your first experience, why would it be different this time? You know, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So what I mean by that, Leo, is, you know, if he was to go back to LTAC, the same thing will happen again, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so my first advice is make some noise now. And when I say make noise, write to them, right? And be very determined. I don't know whether you could hear the answer that I gave to the first question that I read out. Could, you know,
No, I
if
did
you,
not.
yeah, that's okay. You can watch it on replay, because in that first answer, in that first question that I answered, I pretty much advised how to stop them from sending your dad back to LTAC, you know, but you need to do it early on, and
Okay.
you need to have your ducks in a row, so to speak. You know, that is my first advice. However, with everything that you shared with me, Leo, I don't think they have a case to send your dad to LTAC because of his clinical condition. So he's on dialysis.
Yes.
How many days has he been on dialysis for?
He's had about 5 treatments, and out of the 5, 2 were aborted.
Okay. How long did those treatments last if they went well?
The last one he actually did well, and that lasted a little more than 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. So here is my first advice. So when someone is in kidney failure, and they need dialysis, right? There are actually 2 forms of dialysis. One is what's called dialysis, which is what your dad is getting. And that's sort of short, sharp, few hours, remove whatever, 500 mils. Do you know how much they try to remove within those few hours?
Yes, they tried to remove a liter.
A liter.
Yeah.
It's too much, too soon. So they are 4, and therefore he crashed, most likely.
Yes.
Right? That's why he probably went on
They
norepinephrine.
they tried to move it, but they said that by moving it at a slower rate, it would be better.
That's where I was going to next. Right? Let's just quickly talk about what's most likely happened here. If they were trying to remove a leader within a few hours, that's too much for someone that's critically ill. You know, the other thing that I was hearing from you is his heart rate is 185. That means his heart is trying to compensate for too much fluid removal, right? That's one thing that I'm hearing. The next thing that I'm hearing, if he's on amiodarone, he would have gone into AF or AFib. Do you know what I mean by that?
Wait, what? Sorry?
So you mentioned he is on amiodarone.
Yes.
That's telling me he went into AFib or atrial fibrillation. Have
Yes,
you heard
he
of
was
that?
on AFib this morning.
Right. So here is what's most likely happened here. If they removed too many fluids at once, his electrolytes would have been out of balance. When you remove a leader from the dialysis, your potassium and magnesium levels often go down rapidly. If potassium and magnesium levels go down rapidly, one of the most likely things to happen next is to go into atrial fibrillation, right, or into AFib. So now they are battling in probably replacing potassium and replacing magnesium. Now, granted, there could be another thing. If they couldn't remove as many fluids as they would like, his potassium might have gone up with the same effect of going into AFib, right? Potassium either too low or too high can cause AFib.
It actually was too low. They
Okay, all right.
they actually just about an hour ago they did took some blood because they said his potassium levels look low.
Yeah. Okay. So often by replacing potassium, that might fix the AF, the AFib, right? So I'm not sure why they've given the amiodarone. I would hope that just by replacing potassium, that might be sufficient, but obviously it may not. Does he have a history of AFib?
Yes, since he had the cardiac arrest
I
2
see.
months ago.
I see. Then it makes sense that they're giving the amiodarone on top of that.
He's also been having frequent PVCs.
Yeah, no surprises. Often goes hand in hand with AFib. Okay, so let's look at some strategies here, what I believe needs to happen next. So obviously the dialysis is too much for him in a short period of time. Another form of dialysis that they should offer is called hemofiltration, or, and I type it in here, hemofiltration, or CRRT. Hang on,
I
CRR.
know that's over continuous number of days. I've looked into
Correct,
that.
correct. Most ICUs that I've worked at, Leo, we would have done hemofiltration or CRRT. So rather than taking off a liter in 4 hours, you might take off a liter over 24 hours. That is a much more gentle approach, much more gentle, right? Then the sudden potassium drop is much less likely to happen. The sudden blood pressure drop, with a MAP of 50 and needing norepinephrine, is less likely to happen. It may still happen, but you can manage it easier because you're taking a much more gentle approach, right? Very simple. Now, what I've also learned is that not all ICUs can offer hemofiltration or CRRT.
Most likely they have an outside contracted company that comes with these portable dialysis machines.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Is this the first time your dad has dialysis within those 2 months? First time?
This is, well, since we arrived here, this is the first time he's, only at
Okay.
this particular hospital. Before this, his kidneys were okay.
Okay. And let's just come back to the pending or the impeding transfer to LTAC. Do they want to send him back to the same LTAC?
No, they have been agreeable to send us north. It's just that because we have 3 so-called ball and chains, the dialysis, the trach, and the neurological problems, it's hard to find an LTAC that will actually willing to receive him. Most LTACs only want 2.
Yeah. And here is another thing, Leo. With AFib, with kidney failure, he needs input from the specialists, i.e., from the renal specialist, and he also needs input from a cardiologist. I very much doubt that he can go to LTAC unless his kidneys are no longer failing. I very much doubt he could go to LTAC unless his heart is back in a sinus rhythm, right, which is a regular heart rhythm and not in AF.
Okay.
Right? Now, is it fair to say that last time around when your dad went into LTAC, he was in a better condition than he is now? Is that a fair statement?
That is 100% correct.
So, that's why I'm sort of with that information, Leo, I would use this information, and again, you can watch it on replay, to write to hospital executive, right? You need specialist input for his kidneys. You need specialist input for his heart, right? You mentioned that in LTAC he developed sepsis,
A UTI,
UTI.
a
Did you say
perforated,
pressure sores?
yes, a 3rd-degree pressure, 2 pressure wounds, 1 on the sacrum, 1 on the behind, and an infiltrated PICC line.
My goodness, my goodness. So that in and of itself is likely to repeat itself in another LTAC, very likely to repeat itself. Now, and I remember last time when we spoke here, did you have, and I'm digressing here for just for one moment, but did you do any further research to go back north, or no chance of that?
We found a number of LTACs, that are willing to receive him, but we're still, we were at the LTAC. He was at the point where he was healthy enough that we could have traveled with him with a medical escort. And now he's where, if we put his health at jeopardy, we could probably go by an air ambulance. Besides putting his health in jeopardy, there's also the financial concern. So, those two things. And then what's in the back of my mind is doctor saying, well, he's stable enough to go to LTAC, but at the same time, he may not survive all this because of his age, because of all these conditions that are upon him. He's, not of, he may not survive all these setbacks because he said with the trach, you're more susceptible to infections, and each of these infections seem to make him decline more and more.
Is he having an infection right now?
Today is his last day of the sepsis that he received, or I should say that he was brought to this hospital. He had a UTI that led to the kidney injury, which turned into sepsis.
So today is his last day of antibiotics. Is that what
Correct.
you're saying?
Yes.
Right. And he is now off the norepinephrine?
No, they still have it. They just have it at a lower level.
There's no way, Leo, he can go to LTAC on norepinephrine. There's no way. There's no way he can go to LTAC if they're still replacing potassium, right? The amiodarone, are they giving that IV or through the PEG?
That's IV.
IV. There's no way he can go to LTAC on IV amiodarone. No way.
Yeah. Hello.
You guys are great hands.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm on a call. Thank you. I'll speak to you in a few minutes.
Okay,
Thank
sounds
you.
good.
Thank
I'll
you,
see you
sir.
then, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The evening nurse was coming in. My apologies.
That's okay. So there's no way he can go to LTAC with all these issues that are very ICU specific, that you can really only treat in ICU. You'll be setting yourself up for a disaster. So then I also know you had the question in the beginning about, how far should you take treatment? What if my dad is suffering? And, you had those questions. Do you think your dad is suffering right now? Do you think he's in a lot of pain?
Well, neurologically, he has lost a lot of ground. He's not tracking. He's not making facial cues. He can't move. He can move his right hand ever so slightly. So I can't gauge, what is going on with him.
Okay. Do you think that he's in pain and that he's suffering?
If I was to put myself in his position, I would say most certainly, because, with all the different tubing that's in him, the not only just pain, but probably some sort of level of delirium, because he's constantly awake. He has, for the most part, when he came into the ICU, he was not blinking. His eyes were completely wide open, and the eyes are the temple to your soul. If they're not turning off, your eyes are not closed. You're constantly going and going and going. So he's being fatigued by his eyes. He's being fatigued because he had a lot of respiration, high respiration. And so there is a lot of that's going on in him. So I'm sure that he's having some sort of pain or some sort of distress, whether it be the physical body, the brain, or whatever with to have you.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Does and just remind me again, Leo, does he have like an advanced care plan?
Yes.
What does it say?
It says that, oh, well, that I'm the responsible person for his care, and that in the event that he has any problems, that I'm supposed to do what in my best interest for him, and that he would like to be, he's right now full code, even though he had a heart attack that led to the noxic brain injury. So we still left him as full code because we thought that, I should say, I thought that if I experienced while we were in the other hospital, somebody that was not full code, and that person, um, they didn't do as much as they could have done for that person. Just overhearing the conversation from the family, and not only that, but when the person passed away, they were joking in that person's room. It's very heartbreaking to hear. And then I didn't put it together until they bought something that looked like a frame that actually went over the bed when they brought the bed out of the room. So I want the best for my father, but at the same time, I don't want to put him through too much. So I, I'm, spiritually, I have all the saints behind me. I have a whole bunch of saints and whatever. I reached out to the local parish here, had sacrament for the sick, said for him. But for myself, I reached out to family members, asked what their opinions are, and everybody puts it back on me that I ultimately have the decision. And, being by my father now for almost 4 months, I'm also going through what he's going through almost on a daily basis. We don't sleep that much. We're, awake most of the time. It's hard to make clear decision, especially when I call the doctors hi and goodbye, because they come into the room, they literally say hello, they barely listen to him, and then they leave. They don't really want to talk with me. They don't interact with me.
Sort of a one-sided conversation they're trying to initiate.
Yes, yes. And when I stand in front of them, I try to block them and try to gauge what's his status, what's the care plan, what's going on. It's I have other
But
patients I have to do, or something that's more pressing than us.
yeah, yeah, I see, I see. And in that advance, I mean, as you've pointed out, the DNR is not appropriate because you have now seen firsthand what happens when people have a DNR, right?
Yeah.
But in the advanced care plan, does it say, has your dad documented, hey, if I'm stuck in hospital on
No,
dialysis machine? No, okay, it's not very specific.
it's just puts me as the person to make the
Yeah.
decisions on.
And that is a tough position to be in, Leo. All the burden is on you. You don't want to get it wrong. You don't, and it's a tough position to be in. And especially, if the rest, from what I'm hearing, the rest of your family is saying, hey, Leo, you make the decisions, it's all on you. Is that sort of the situation you're finding yourself
Yes,
in?
for the most part, yes.
Yeah, that's a tough decision to be in, because you don't want to make the wrong decision here. Would you feel more comfortable and more confident in your decision making if you were closer to home? Do you think that would help you in your?
Yes, yes. I think when I was here the first on your program the first time, having family members come visit and they look at him, you know, having more eyes on the doctor and the professionals, then they could get their own insights to add to the picture. Having people that, I haven't really slept a whole night's sleep. So people that come fresh, having a fresh perspective, having, people that are, I think when I told you when we were at Mayo, it was very disconcerting when they had the doctors rounding outside of the door, sitting and talking, and then they come into the room. I don't have that luxury of knowing when the doctor's going to come in, knowing what's going on, and then asking the appropriate questions.
Because if you were back home, you also would have more family around you to support you. Is that correct?
That's my assumption. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, your efforts, as soon as your dad shows improvement, you've done that last time. As soon as your dad shows any signs of improvement, your goal should be to get him back home as quickly as possible. I have another point to add here, Leo. Let's just take the worst case scenario, right? And your dad may deteriorate further, right? You would want more family around. I would think you would want more family around one way or another, but especially if the worst case scenario was to happen, you certainly would want your family around, wouldn't you?
Yes. It's very, very challenging when you don't have a support network.
Yeah. and
And
and and you are more or less living in the ICU.
I'm not, I am living, I'm living off of whatever the nurses are willing to give me. I'm living in the chair that I'm sitting in. When I was at the LTAC, I was sleeping on the floor next to my father. It's been a journey. It's a learning journey. But it's hard to make clear decisions when you don't know what the whole picture is. When we're at Mayo, we had a portal where I could look at, and they told you could see what the doctors were uh, talking about, or what the care plan was. I didn't have that privilege when I was at the LTAC, and I really don't have that here either. So I just have to. I'm constantly listening, trying to overhear what the nurses say to one nurse to the other. Maybe it's applicable towards me, maybe it's not, but I'm trying to find out that, and then I try to get whatever I can from the doctors as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very, very challenging what you're going through here, and I can also see with everything that you've shared with me here, there's no end in sight either.
Yeah, so that's why I've lost quite a bit of faith in the medical community. It's hard to say I believe this person because, well, A, they're not talking to me, or if they were talking to me, they're not sharing everything that they should be sharing with me. You know, and so I don't know what's going to happen for us. But
Have you since we last spoke, have you spoken to your health? Who would pay for a transfer back? Would the health insurance pay?
no, that was when I was last online, I started a GoFundMe page, which didn't get the I didn't get to the halfway point of what the cost is, because the average cost, at least what I've been quoted, is around $30,000. Um, but it's something. I would hawk everything just so that I can be closer to family.
Right. And what makes you so certain that the health insurance won't pay for a transfer back? What makes you so certain?
Oh, every besides every single caseworker that we've interacted with, uh, the the air ambulance companies that I have talked with, they also say what they do is they'll take a credit card number up front, and then if the insurance will pay for something, what they do is they put a credit card hold on your card, and then if whatever the credit card is, let's say hypothetically the credit card would pay for something, they'll deduct whatever they you know um, will charge, whatever the insurance will pay, they'll subtract it from whatever they took from the hold and then refund the difference. But I have, when I spoke to you last, it was around the Christmas season, I think. And so there weren't any air ambulance companies available because they were all transporting kids and people of more worthy causes,
Okay.
cancer and such.
How many times did you inquire with the health insurance? Just once, or?
No, I've reached out to the insurance a number of times, and that's another thing I'm confused about. In terms of his health insurance, they say that with Medicare, you have a certain amount of time that you're supposed to be in the hospital, and then a certain amount of time you have to be out of the hospital before they can bill again. And the whole scenario in itself is very time exhausting, but also confusing as well. They have literature that says contrary information.
Leo, no matter whether it's the health insurance or everything that you're encountering here, one of my suggestions and recommendations is that you approach everything with a mindset of everything in life is negotiable. It is a mindset that will, I believe, will help you in a situation like this.
Okay.
If I was you, I would keep going back to that health insurance, because by you staying where you are, or by your dad staying where you are, that's one of your biggest problems.
Mhm.
But it's not the only problem. But your life would be so much easier if you were back home and you had support, right? And like I said, I would not give up with the health insurance. Number one, everything in life is negotiable. Have that mindset. Okay. Number two, you can look at as a no, as a rejection. You can take that view. My view on a no is not yet.
Okay.
Your mindset is critical. Your mindset is absolutely critical here. Okay. Let's just say you write to hospital executive today and you say, look, we can't go to LTAC and here are the reasons why, and they reject it. Well, you have two choices. You can give up, or you can keep making your point. Remember, everything in life is negotiable, but it often doesn't come just with one email or with one phone call. I would keep hammering them. I would keep hammering them until the cows come home. Because that's what they will do. They've hammered you
Ideally,
last.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know that we're short for time, both on both sides. Um, Ideally, what should I stay at the hospital until he kind of recovers, or I because I know that they're not going to do a lateral transfer to another hospital up north.
Okay,
So
hang on, sorry, Leo, to interrupt you there. By
yes,
you saying that, you are mentally closing that door for you.
okay,
Stop saying negative things. Stop that. Stop that immediately. Because that's one of your biggest challenges. And I understand that it's very difficult for you to have a positive mindset at the moment. I get that. It's very difficult for you. But if you keep saying to yourself, oh, they won't do a transfer up north, how likely is that going to happen? How much
no,
more likely?
what
How
I've
much more
experienced,
likely?
what
Okay,
I've
that means
experienced.
you've given up.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't given up. It's just that
Okay, good.
the case managers are very difficult to deal with in the
That's
two hospitals that I have
yeah.
dealt with, and this is before my father had dialysis or was receiving dialysis. They wouldn't accept him in any hospital whatsoever when I initially tried to get him to do a lateral transfer to another ICU. They said, unless you're here and you come in with that's something that's not pre-existing, if this is something that just occurred, and you're in the vicinity, then we can treat you. But if you're coming outside, they can't do a lateral transfer.
Okay. Once again, that's what they tell you. You know, the question is, will you accept that, or will you keep advocating for what you need in a situation like this? Here is another suggestion, and I don't know whether, you know, that can be facilitated or not. Do you have a family member that could relieve you so you can get a break? Is there any way you can facilitate that?
I have a family member that asked me a while ago, but they're up in age, and I feel like I don't want to burden them, because it is a long drive to drive here, because they're at the bottom of Florida and they are up in age. I don't want to put them too much out, and I don't know how, how how much of an advocate they would be opposed to myself.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I hear you.
it,
And you asked me, you know, you asked earlier, is it a good idea for you to leave? I don't have the answer for you there. I think what would be very valuable for you is to have a break, right? That would be very valuable for you. By the same token, you know, you are the most important person in here, right? You really are, because you know, you're more or less, you are holding vigil for your dad that no one else seems to be able to do at the moment, right? But you also need a break. You do need a break.
yeah, but I feel that, if I was to leave his side, when I was at the LTAC, I was literally by his side, and I tried to change his position. And even though I tried to change his position, he still has got a stage 3 pressure wound. So if I'm not constantly on it and pressuring people, then
Would be
they're going
worse.
to turn his care. He would have, if I wasn't constantly by his side, he probably would have been dead by now.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you loud and clearly. I hear you loud and clearly. I would, if I was you, I would put the pressure on the hospital and the health insurance to get your dad back. I
Mhm.
would do that. I would be relentless if I was you.
And in terms of the kidney, aside from the three types of dialysis, what else can we do, or are available to kind of optimize him? Or what question should I be asking the nephrologist?
Yep, good question. Do you know what his urea and bun levels are?
I know his bun levels are very high, and they have been, and his creatinine levels have been very high as well.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier, Leo, that your dad has gone backwards neurologically.
Yes.
That could be a result of high bun levels. It could be. So when the bun levels are high, ammonium is set free. And when ammonium is set free, that might cloud the brain. It might. So that's one question you should be asking. Do they think that potentially his brain is foggy because of ammonium levels, high ammonium levels?
Okay. Let me write that down. Yes.
Right. Another question that's important here is, are urea and bun levels coming down as part of the dialysis treatment?
Okay.
Right. Other questions, we mentioned that earlier, but I do believe it ties right in with what we discussed. Other questions are, can they do hemofiltration instead of dialysis?
Okay.
Right. Another question is he making spontaneous urine at all? Do you know?
No, when they bladder scan him, it's generally in the low hundreds, either 100 something or 200 something. So they haven't straight catheterized him in days.
I see. Okay.
They have a quota of 300, and above.
Okay, I see. Other questions that are important are, is the potassium drop, the drop in potassium level, is that a result of the dialysis, or is it a result of something else? Like, are they still giving him diuretics? Do you know if they're giving him diuretics?
Lasix.
Okay, Lasix. Okay. But you are saying he's even though he's getting Lasix, he's not making spontaneous urine.
No.
Okay. All right. Makes me wonder why they are giving Lasix then. I would be asking that question too. Why are they giving Lasix if he's not making urine?
Okay.
One side effect of the Lasix, Leo, is Lasix can also impact negatively on kidney failure and can get urea up.
Can you tell me what urea is?
Yeah. So urea is what's considered a kidney marker. Okay. So when it's sort of an organic chemical substance in the blood. If the kidneys are not working, creatinine goes up in the blood. Right?
Okay.
It's a kidney marker, if you will.
Okay.
Right. So if kidneys are not working, the urea levels in the blood go up. It's one of the first things that goes up. Okay. Another question is, you can ask for GFR. So GFR is glomerulo, hang on that I'll tell you the right, it's basically the filtration rate of the kidneys. It's estimated glomerular filtration rate of the kidneys, right? So it's the filtration rate of the kidneys. Ask them for that. That should be within a normal range. And again, is that improving as they're going along with dialysis?
Okay. Now,
right.
all these are great questions, and I truly appreciate it. I thank you. Wonderful. But my thing is, these doctors are in and out, so I have to figure out a way of fencing them into the corner to get these questions to be answered.
Yeah. So here is how I would do that if I was you. When they come in, ask them, hey, when you come in tomorrow, can we set 10 minutes aside? I have some questions. I'm a big believer in keeping life simple. Just ask them.
Okay.
Just
Thank
ask
you.
them. Again, Leo, I think in a situation like that, a mindset shift is very important. Everything in life is negotiable. No means not yet, right? I'm well aware that this is all easier said than done, but you have to start somewhere mentally.
Yes.
Right? Everything in life is negotiable. Everything. I would hammer this health insurance. I would hammer this health insurance until you get blue in your face. That's what I would do. Because it is not, I think it's very inappropriate to keep you in this situation, right? And it's very inappropriate for your dad to be in this situation without being closer to family. There must be some exceptional cases. There must be.
I think I mentioned this one of the times I was on before. If any of your viewers have any suggestions, please put it in the comment section.
Yeah, please,
and it would be
please.
greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
And I thank you and all the people for allowing me this time to talk with you. I am blessed to have you as a resource.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing, and keep fighting. I know it's much easier said than done. Keep fighting. One last thing, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Thank you. I appreciate. I wish you all the best.
Okay.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. All the best, Leo. All the best, Leo.
Thank you so much. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you. And you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Leo, again for sharing. And we are all with you fighting this battle with your dad. Like, final words here, do not give up and make some noise. Everything in life is negotiable. And hopefully you can get some help from the health insurance, from the hospital. You know, this is not a sustainable situation. You can't be living there in ICU for the next, few months. It's going to take too much out of you and out of your dad. But once again, everything in life is negotiable. No means not yet. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. All right. Look, for today, I want to wrap this up here. I mean, there was enough. It's a pleasure, Leo. It's a pleasure. Nice to talk to you again. I do these YouTube lives once a week, usually on a Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. During when there's no daylight saving, that's 3:30 p.m. on a Saturday Pacific time. It is 10:30 a.m. for me on a Sunday, Sydney, Melbourne time in Australia. Currently, when I start these YouTube lives, it's 11:30 p.m. in the UK. I do them every week. Now, if you have a loved one in intensive care and you need help, we have actually a membership for families of critically ill patients in intensive care. And you can get access to the membership for families of critically ill patients in intensive care, where you have access to me and my team, and we answer all your questions intensive care related. You can get access to the membership by going to intensivecarehotline.com, by clicking on the membership link, or by going to intensivecaresupport.org directly. I also offer one-on-one consulting and advocacy for families in intensive care, one-on-one over the phone, Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, whichever medium works best for you. I talk to you and your families directly. I talk to you and doctors and nurses directly, and you will say that things will change very, very quickly in your favor when I either set you up with the right questions or when I talk to doctors and nurses directly. Once again, have a look at our testimonials section. I have worked in intensive care for over 20 years in 3 different countries, where I worked as a nurse manager for over 5 years, and where I have been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care all over the world for the last 11 years here at intensivecarehotline.com. We also offer medical record reviews in real time so that you can get a second opinion in real time. We also offer medical record reviews after intensive care if you have unanswered questions, if you need closure, or if you are simply suspecting medical negligence. If you need intensive care at home, please go to intensivecareathome.com. We are currently operating all around Australia in all major capital cities, as well as regional and rural areas. We are NDIS approved, TAC approved in Victoria, iCare approved in New South Wales, NIISQ in Queensland, DVA approved all around Australia. We have also received funding through public hospitals, private health insurance, as well as departments of health. We also provide NDIS level 2 and level 3 support coordination. We also provide NDIS nursing assessment, NDIS specialist nursing assessments. And lastly, we're also currently providing an emergency bypass service, emergency department bypass service for the Western Sydney local area health district. If your hospital needs ICU beds emptied, if you need to eliminate bed blocks in hospitals and in ICU, if you need to eliminate bed blocks in ED, we are the go-to organization, Intensive Care at Home, and you can go get more information at intensivecareathome.com. Also, if you are an NDI support coordinator and you're looking for nursing care for your participants, once again, we can help you with that. Or if you're looking for an NDIS nursing assessment, we can help you with that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Have a look at the quick tips that I'm putting out this week. If you have any questions, if you want to have any topics covered here, please send them to me. All of that you get at intensivecarehotline.com. Call us on one of the numbers on the top of our website, or send us an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com. If you like my videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click the like button, click the notification bell, share the video with your friends and families, and comment below what you want to see next, what questions and insights you have. Thanks for watching. This is Patrik Hutzel from intensivecareathome.com and intensivecarehotline.com, and I will talk to you in a few days. Take care for now.